Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar, brought to you by Techstrong and configurate. My name is Cody J. Brown. I'm the host of Techstrong Learning. We have an exciting presentation ahead, but first I have just a couple of housekeeping notes. First, today's session is being recorded. So if you miss any of our talk or you'd like to rewatch, share with a friend, the on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude our live webinar today. If you have any questions, we want you to send those in using the Q&A tab, which can be found on the right side of the screen. That's also where you're going to find the chat tab, and this is where we want you to engage with your fellow audience members and let us know your thoughts throughout today's program. Finally, at the conclusion of our webinar, we will be giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so be sure to stick around. Our topic today is Get Infrastructure Transparency and Improve Your Developer's Experience in the Process. And joining me is Seth Dempsey, CEO and co-founder of Configurate Inc. Seth, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to give you the floor and let you share your screen.
Great. Thank you very much, Cody. And thanks for everybody who is joining today. I am Seth Dempsey, co-founder of Configurate, and I'm here to talk to you today about, getting greater infrastructure transparency and also, tuning up the developer experience inside your organization to really help things, sort of move better and have, more universal information across the team. So, I always like to tell people that, we're in the best time to be a developer. We have so many resources at our disposal. And, the cloud, it makes it easy for anyone to spin up new infrastructure, resources for any reason at any time. But the cloud also makes it easy for anyone to spin up new infrastructure for any reason at any time. Um, if you are using the cloud, you have sprawl. There is an upside and a downside to this easiness. And let's sort of dive into what sprawl is. And ultimately, I view sprawl as the spread or irregularity in development without restraint. And this has been made much easier by the clouds, by the SaaS services, by the different APIs that we can all use and really benefit from to help us build our applications faster and focus our energy on doing the things that we're uniquely positioned to do to help our customers get the value out of our products. But this sprawl has a downside. You may be logged in and have no idea where anything is. You may not have any idea where the build pipeline for a service is, or which tool it's even using, because many organizations use more than one CI/CD tool. Where are the bugs in Jira for a particular service? If something's wrong, sometimes it's hard to figure out who's on call and how do you escalate issues. Um, Sometimes you know that services depend on data, but which job creates the data? Where's the code? Who owns it? And my perennial favorite is whose instance is this? What does it do, and can I nuke it safely without taking down a portion of my product? Um, like I said, sprawl, is the outcome of this phenomenal power we have to spin up and use a lot of infrastructure. Um, but it really takes a toll on organizations. So I wanted to dive into a couple of the symptoms of sprawl that I've certainly seen in organizations that I've been a part of in the past. And I think that many of you probably are facing yourself today. So the first is lingering vulnerabilities. So we know that vulnerabilities are found every single day. Um, how do you find them? How do you know where they are? So we know that, for instance, Log4j just happened. How long did it take you to find all of the references to it in your code base and fix it, and then figure out every single infrastructure resource that it was running on to update? Um, and are all of these vulnerabilities in all of these places the same in terms of their severity? How did you know what was more important than the other, especially if you're working in an environment that has many services or microservices? Understanding which applications and which business segments and which users are exposed to these things is not super transparent if you just have a list of libraries that have vulnerabilities. And having that data and being able to understand not just what libraries are impacted, but what services and applications, that's what's going to give you the opportunity to prioritize things better and spend your time where it has the most leverage during these crazy issues. So the next thing is what I like to call defunct resources. Like I said before, what does this machine do? Can I turn it off? Who's using it? Back in the old days, you'd never turn off a computer under somebody's desk when they left the office for a different team because you never knew what it was doing, what it was connected to, or if it might have an impact on your application. And we have the same problem today. There are scattered instances or volumes or things all over your cloud accounts, and you probably have many cloud accounts. You may even have it across multiple cloud providers in many different regions. And so the optics are very, very difficult. It would be nice to know what's going on. And it'd be nice to know when you have questions so you can go investigate. Because there are so many of these resources with many times incomprehensible names, it's hard to catalog what's actually happening, who the owners are, and what things are doing. Similarly, because things are so easy to do in the cloud, and we don't have to requisition machines 9 months ahead of time and get finance approval for them anymore, is the problem of unknowable costs. Costs are just hard, even if you're on top of them. Do you know how much all of your environments cost? Do you know what you're spending on different pieces of infrastructure? Do you know what services cost what amount of money to run? And do the teams themselves have the optics? Do they have it quarterly, monthly, hourly? It's all over the board. But we know that what gets measured gets managed, and we all hate paying cloud providers to boil water. We want to make sure that we're using our resources effectively, whether they're our own cycles as a developer or the money that we're spending on the actual infrastructure itself. The next thing is I call is like missing the forest for the trees. As an organization gets larger, when you have more and more developers with more and more cloud resources and more services, the context and connections and dependencies between these services are very hard to understand. Whether it's a list of resources that you're pulling from a cloud console or something that was on a wiki somebody wrote a long time ago, it is sometimes very difficult, and you wonder what is all this stuff? What does it do? Who owns it? And those types of questions. So navigating, we all navigate every day, and we navigate by maps. And it's nice to have a map, and we spend resources building these maps and updating them and maintaining them, but we come to rely on them because they are easy ways for us to understand big pictures and drill in where we want to, Google Maps style. I would hate to do that by a CSV or by semi-discoverable information or none at all. So, as a developer, as somebody who's on call, as somebody in the DevOps space, or as an executive, being able to have this big picture and contextualize not just the infrastructure, but the actual code and the tooling becomes more and more important and difficult as your organization grows. Finally, I talked a little bit about on-call, just then, but it's a bit stressful sometimes being on call, especially again as your organization gets larger, and especially as your architecture becomes more and more service-oriented. The more dependencies you have, the less of it you're going to have paged into your head. So being able to quickly understand what's going on, whose stuff is this, who do I call, what other systems are connected, this is very difficult to answer, at 2 o'clock in the morning, unless you have everything organized perfectly. And even if you do have things organized perfectly, the inconsistency of the organization across groups in a large company, a large development team, still make it very difficult for these things to flow easily. And it's certainly both for our own ease when we are on call, and also, for the sake of our customers, because we want the lowest mean time to resolution we can possibly have. These are things that we want to avoid. So, you know, where there are problems, there are inevitably solutions. Um, but the tooling that we've used today just isn't cutting it, right? What are you using today? Are you using, bookmarks? Are you using a bunch of tabs that were sent to you when you asked a developer something 4 months ago in Slack that you're trying to find at search? Is there a spreadsheet that hasn't been updated in 9 months, and a quarter of the people don't work at the company anymore? The tooling that is used and the difficulty of keeping things consistent and up to date were a problem for me. And quite honestly, the reason that Configurate exists is because I've worked in so many development organizations, from very small ones to very large ones, where we consistently had these symptoms, and we consistently suffered from a lack of the ability to solve it with the tools that we had. No matter if you were trying to just do it yourself, seat of the pants, or whether you had an entire team that was dedicated to trying to find this information and keep it up to date and answer these types of questions. It just wasn't cutting it, because the pace at which we changed our infrastructure, the pace at which we created services, and just the overall pace of change was beyond what these sort of manual processes could cover. So, you know, that's why we built Configurate. We're really happy to share our solution to these problems with you. These problems I've faced my entire career. Now, we've been working on this for a while, and it's available for you to use too. And we call Configurate the software development knowledge graph, because it does enable you to take all of your code and services and resources and tooling, and for once have it organized in a single and consistent place for you to use, to view, to edit, and to ask questions of interactively and in real time. So, let's look at, how do you gain infrastructure transparency? How do you gain transparency into your tool change while improving the overall developer experience in your organization? So I'm going to actually switch now over to a demo where I'm just going to show you, this is something called service detail page. So if you're in a service oriented company, you have a lot of services. Um, one of the things that Configurate gives you is a single place to go for a service to see a number of things, whether it's who's on call and how to raise an incident, whether it's who the owners are and how to contact them, trying to understand what application or applications a service may be consumed by or used in. Looking deeply at things like code quality, looking at your activity for your repository, looking at your CI/CD actions, bringing in documentation like your runbook, design docs, and links to your dashboards. And then diving into metrics that you might be using from your APM tool, trying to understand your SLAs, whether it's your Jira, but having it all in one place. And having it be very, very easily updated, and have it be understanding of what's connected and what's not connected, what's filled in and what's not filled in, so that at an organizational level you'll know, hey, there isn't anybody on call for this service. This is something that we should probably fix. um, there's the ability to drill in to things. If I wanted to, simply look at failure cases in my CI/CD, I can go ahead and deep link into the tools that I use every single day, but not having to know exactly what repository and exactly what pipeline it was. It was a very simple click for me to get there. Um, I can easily see the dependencies, upstream and downstream dependencies. It's very easy for me to add dependencies. If I wanted to say, hey, this service is now being consumed by something else, we can go ahead and do that. And then also, what are all the libraries and all the versions that are being used by this service? All pretty interesting stuff to want to look at. So um, the second thing is, looking at the insights that this data can give you. I'm going to go back to another demo environment for you and show you. We call this our Explorer. And our Explorer allows you to look at all of the data that we just showed you for that service across all the services and all the applications in your environment, and choose data sources, do joins across the data, uh, multiple levels of relationships, and then do filtration and add, arbitrary ands and ors to really try to understand, the answers to questions. The question that I'm answering here, that the graph was just executing when I made that change is, hey, what are all the services where we have libraries that are, containing, node version 16, right? So maybe there's a corporate goal to upgrade to a newer version. We can see all the services in one spot. In fact, we can even click on the service and at a glance see who the owners are and jump to that service directly from that graph view. So, having the data, all in those nice service pages, like I showed earlier, is really an interesting thing. But the ability to interrogate it and save these things and get output that you can use to drive, progress in your organization towards goals that you have, is also, a very interesting thing. Again, if any of you have had the pleasure of working at larger companies, gathering this data and coordinating across teams is a difficult thing to do, but to have that at your fingertips with real-time data is a pretty nice thing to have. And then, the last thing is the developer experience. So, if I look at, you know, the applications that my organization may have, the ability to understand which services are in them, the ability to drill into those services, look at the environments, look at the owners. And we actually haven't looked at environments yet, and the actual infrastructure, but any service that you're running can have one or more environments. And each of these environments can have resources in them from one or more accounts. If you want to add more resources to an account, say you added a database or something like that, you can click map resources. You can choose whatever clouds. So in this case, we have all three major clouds across 5 different accounts connected. We can see all of the resources that are cataloged, but I can also switch and search for a tag and go ahead and just map all 4 of these resources that weren't there before. I can also drill into the resources and learn a lot more about them. I can learn about version timeline of what's changed. I can get information on cost, which is coming in the pretty near future. Having all of this stuff at one place and then being able to, with a single click, jump into the native cloud console. So you're looking at an EC2 instance, be able to go right to it, be able to go directly to its CloudWatch log if you have the the access to do that in AWS. Is a big time saver for people. It allows you to really sort of navigate across your applications with a few clicks rather than having to really go, find a wiki link that may have been emailed to you, 6 months ago that may or may not be up to date. Um, if you're inside of a service and you want to add capabilities to it, it's very easy to add plugins. So if I wanted to add, GitHub activity to it, I would find the specific GitHub credential that I was using. I could name the plugin, and it'll just show up on there. In this case, I actually don't have any data in this one, and can easily edit and delete that. But the ability to go ahead and create these services without having to write code, without having to do anything that's onerous. I can create a new service, just find a repository that I have connected, and I have multiple repositories that are linked to this account. I can add myself as an owner to this. I could add a tag. Maybe it handles PII. I'm not sure. Maybe it's in production. and create the service. And now I can go ahead and add the plugins. It already understands the location of the repository. It's nice to be able to do this all in one place without having to spend a lot of time doing it. It's really easy to connect your cloud accounts. You could easily just choose your provider, whether it's Sonar or Jira or Datadog. We have more plugins coming, constantly. The ability for you to go ahead and deep link into the documentation, really understand, what does this do? What are the security credentials? What's the CloudFormation template? It's all linked to make this not a chore, but something that anybody can do pretty quickly on their own. It's hard to undertake a task of building a system like this when it's another project. We really, our goal was to make a solution with Configurate that solved the problem, rather than giving you another project that you had to build and maintain. But really just have something that would come in turnkey and connect to your infrastructure, and enable you to deal with these scenarios that we think are either common in most companies that are cloud native, or will be within the next couple years as people continue to finish their cloud migrations. So at this point, I wanted to actually flip back over to a slide for a second and ask people, do you have Sprawl? Does this resonate with you, and how are you fighting it today? What are the tools that you're using today to try to manage sprawl inside of your enterprise? How do you figure out who owns things? How do you sort of navigate your internal map? Who draws it? Who maintains it? And how do you do it? And what are the other types of tools that you think probably belong inside this integrated queryable view of all of the tooling and infrastructure that your organization uses, to build the applications that you're spending your time on? I'd love to hear from you, and see if there are any questions, or really just turn this into something a little bit more interactive, and understand what sprawl is like for you today. So I'm actually new to this webcasting software, and I'm not sure exactly. So okay, so I do see a question coming in. Somebody asked about security. They asked about a penetration testing. So I think you're right. Yeah, if you had a plugin for a tool like Nessus, that something that's on our radar, you could bring that not only to the service level, but you could again use that to contextualize that penetration testing data. So if the tool gives you an instance that has a problem, how do you know what service and what application and what the relative importance of that is relative to the gigantic list that it spits out? So that does make a lot of sense. Anything else that people are, interested in either, adding to, or sort of understanding other scenarios to use this? Well, great. So crickets here. Well, look, this is what we had prepared for you today. What I will say is, Configurate is available today for you to just go play around in. You can go right to configurate.io, and click a button and have access to it immediately. No need to talk to anybody. No credit card or commitment required. You can connect to us at hello@configurate.io, and you know, thank you very much for sitting in and really helping us confirm that other people are interested in the concept of sprawl. When we talk to people, there are a lot of people who say, yes, we've tried to build an internal tool, but we don't want to. We want to focus on our core business. And we know that the teams that use tools like this, like most of the decacorn set who have actually invested people to build internal ones, find it absolutely irreplaceable. And when they go places that don't have it later in their career, it's one of the biggest sort of things that they miss about the infrastructure from working at one of the sort of the massive tech companies. If there aren't any other questions, I appreciate everybody's time today, and we'll be back in the future, sort of drilling deeper into more of the questions that you can answer using a platform like Configurate, and talking about how we've helped ourselves organize both our team and the teams from our customers who are actively using this every day to become more effective and efficient at managing the sprawl that their organizations had to tame. Thank you very much, Cody. Thanks for the opportunity to get on and talk to everybody today. I appreciate the hosting.
Of course, and Seth, thank you for being here with us. And I'd like to thank Configurate for sponsoring today's webinar and being here with us. A reminder to our audience that the session was recorded. You should be receiving an email with a link to access the recording on demand. And you can also find it living on the DevOps website at devops.com/webinars. So 4 winners of our $25 Amazon gift card drawing. Our first winner is Joyce M. Our second winner is Stephen S. Our third winner is Neptunus H. And our fourth and final winner is Bob H. So to the 4 of you, congratulations. Keep an eye on your inbox to claim that gift card. But if you don't receive an email, please check your spam folder. Seth, thank you for being here with us today. And to our other supporting staff members, thank you for being here in the back. I would also like to thank our audience for being here with us for today's presentation. Please just take one extra moment to fill out a brief post-webinar survey that should pop up on your screen here in just a moment. But otherwise, we do hope to see you at an upcoming Techstrong Learning webinar. Everyone have a great rest of your day. And Seth, thanks once again.
Thanks, Cody.